April Fool's Day is over, yet the IPC has still taken over my Discord server, much like Plain Arcadia. Sorry if the last video was a bit much, but it is the Elation way to play out a joke so far that it bends back around to make you doubt what you know. And speaking of the Elation, we have just learned something absolutely huge. Evanescia is abundance. More specifically, the ambrosial arbor tree located in the Phantom Moon courtyard, aka the core of the Phantom Moon games. And she has been discovered by none other than a Shinjo general. The worst person that could possibly find her. The prelude to what could possibly be a war in the making. And much like Emphorius, paths are once again intertwining and fighting for supremacy. Preservation, hunt, abundance, and elation, all with the Trailblaze trying to mediate for the sake of peace. All with the destruction waiting in the wings to make a grand entrance. Deja vu. But is this conflict inevitable? And what does this mean for the future of the cosmos with an Aeon war again in the making? And what does an ambrosial arbor in the world of Elation mean for the people of Plain Arcadia? All burning questions that require answers that I will attempt to uncover in this video. So without further ado, this is the Plague Mark of Plain Arcadia explained. But first, next week we are doing our very first Honkai Star Rail competitive account reviews to see who is the best flexer, with a split between the whale/regular spenders and the low spender free-to-plays, of course. And the winner gets the coveted role as the flex king or queen of the Discord server, with 2 different winners, 1 for each division. So join my Discord, link in the description, and check the announcements to sign up there. On to the video. Okay. So before we get into the war among the Aeons, let's talk about the tree and what Evanescia is. Well, remember when I said that Yaoguang is going to be the busiest woman in the story? Yeah, I meant it. She's looking for La Mancha to rekindle the bond between the Galaxy Rangers and the Shanzhou Alliance as fellow Hunch followers. She is also working with Sunday and tracking down/monitoring Blade, all while keeping tabs on what will probably come up sooner or later, Ron Mei, Luocha, and Jinglil's propagation idea. And Yaoguang's job just got even harder, because now she has to deal with not only Blade, but also the Abundance's Plague Mark and Plain Arcadia. Because no one knows more about the Abundance than the Abundance's hate faction. Put simply, a Plague Mark is Yaoshi's personal stamp that they put on their work, much like Nanook throwing around their golden blood. But Yaoshi is more creative about it, because so far as we know, each and every single Shanzhou flagship has a different Plague Mark. The Luofu has the Ambrosial Arbor, of course, the Juming has the Primordial Flame, the Yaoqing has the Lunar Embryo, and the Yutre has the Fallow Earth. And we are all familiar with the Ambrosial Arbor. It is the tree responsible for producing the fruit that, when eaten, turns a person's entire bloodline immortal. But a lesser known fact is that this tree also led to the creation of Starskiff's Fallow Earth and the Salvation and Rebirth Pellet, which is just a healing pill that also works as a painkiller. Fallow Earth is what happens when Yaoshi blesses a rock. It is a mineral found on the Yutre that never depletes, and it has a multitude of different uses, being the ingredient in the creation and germination of star skiffs, because yes, those flying ships are grown from seeds, and it is also used to create the ore that jade abacuses or abaci are made out of. The lunar embryo is the crimson moon that Fei Xiao ate to become the new Borisin warhead, so we are well acquainted with that. And yes, Fei Xiao ate the Plague Mark of her ship, meaning that her particular flagship has conquered its abundance crisis. Kinda weird when you think about that. W. Fei Xiao, the lacking general, is lacking in one more thing: worries, regrets, rivals, a tail, and a Plague Mark. But to address the last known Plague Mark, the Juming has the Primordial Flame, and this flame is none other than the king of the Heliobi, the Flint Emperor. And just in case you missed the video I talked about this being in, the Flint Emperor caused a giant war, but the Juming won, and because the Heliobi can't die, they stuffed him into the engine of the Juming and they used his energy to power their ship. But this Heliobus is insanely powerful and partially responsible for the ascension of Lan, because the man who would later ascend into Lan by the name of Rainbow made a pact with his Heliobus for access to his power to fire the very first Lux arrow, and in exchange the Flint Emperor would get to possess his body. But after firing the Lux arrow, Rainbow disappeared, so the yet went unfulfilled, and the Heliobi are still mad about it to this day because he went MIA. Until he ascended into the Aeon of Friendly Fire. But yes, that is what a plague mark is. It is a double-edged sword and a gift from Yaoshi themselves. So now that we understand what exactly a plague mark is and what the Ambrosial Arbor is, we can look at our favorite adorable pink fox, who seems to be a double path strider at the very least. She was born from abundance, but seems to have some allegiance to the elation as well. In fact, she says herself that she sees some overlap in the two paths and seeks to find a peaceful, happy medium.
Actually, I think the abundance and elation make quite a good match. After all, only with infinite life can one pursue infinite joy. In my opinion, those who are alive have the right to choose death, but they also have the right to choose to live on. After all, there's always something out there that makes tomorrow worth waking up to.
When she said this at first, we weren't exactly sure what she meant, but now we know, considering her origins. What she wants is an unending joke, because in order to keep laughing and seeking entertainment, you have to be alive to do so. Thus, abundance and elation. Endless, plentiful laughs. So I don't see any malice in Evanescia, though she does have an overwhelming sense of innocence and naivety that really suits the true spirit of the Phantom Moon games. If she is a plague mark, she is the fallow earth type of plague mark, rather benign and what seems to be purely beneficial. On the surface, we don't know as of yet. And to address her elation side, she is adept at imagenesis to the point that she can fool the Phantom Moon with her drawings. An example of this being our mask. Previously, I was confused by this, but now that I've done some rereading, now I remember that this was a thing that was established from the start. Sorry about that. Along with Himiko's heirloom mask. Masks can be bought like pearls, stolen like Sparksy's, passed down like Himiko's, and drawn like ours. And all of them count as real and part of the 8 masks of the Phantom Moon games. And as of right now, I think we can be sure about one thing. We know who all of the supplicants are. Sparksy, Full Wish, and her proxies, the Trailblazer, Asheville, Silverwolf, Pearl, Sunday, and Evanescia. Because I think we can confirm that the Fox mask is in fact hers, because, well, Hoyo said so. In the Arcadian Chronicles special program, Albert says this.
Time for a Q&A! We've got a few guests associated with the Phantom Moon games. Let's get to know the honest opinion of our supplicants.
And there she is. So yes, she is a supplicant, and they revealed it here of all places. And also, in this video, everyone holds up signs for what they would do if they won the Phantom Moon games and got to become Aha for the 1 minute. And every single sign is visible except for Evanescia's. She wants to make Plain Arcadia what? Well, Asheville isn't the only one who's a detective, because on a dark and rainy night, I sat at my laptop, my face illuminated by the glow of my screen. I stared at the paused video intently searching for clues, but I did know that I was looking at the right place but at the wrong place at the same time, because what I needed was a simple change of perspective. So I checked the captions. Nothing. Hoyo is concealing this on purpose, that one thing can be certain. But I've got more tricks up my sleeve, so I swapped the language to Japanese, still blocked. Then finally to Chinese, where I would find my answer. Because this time, her message is so short that it's not blocked at all. And what this sign translates to is transform the dual dimension paradise, which is the Chinese name for Plain Arcadia. Elementary, my dear viewers. Yes, transforming Plain Arcadia is what Evanescia wishes to do. In what way, we can't be too sure, but what we do know is that she wants a peaceful collaboration of abundance and elation. She told us herself what she envisions the future of Plain Arcadia to be. And if Aha sees her vision, it makes perfect sense why they allowed this Ambrosial Arbor to exist in their world. Because if any Aeon would be interested in the prospect of combining paths powers or paths coexisting, it would be Aha, or Shipe, but Shipe just wants to assimilate assimilate other Aeons into themselves, so that's not really the same. So now that we know what Evanescia is and what her goal is, what does this mean for the other factions at play? Well, we know for a fact that the Shanjo would be against this joining of forces, even if it is for the benefit of Plain Arcadia, because they just hate the abundance, and Evanescia's plan is radical and flies in the face of everything that is calculated and regulated, so I think it's also safe to say the IPC wouldn't like this either. It is a plan with the highest highs, but also the lowest lows, which is why I think she has no fate that Yaoguang can see. Whether her plan will work or not cannot even be extrapolated on, possibly because it hinges on us, the Trailblazer, the biggest threat she sees to herself in winning the games, which is odd considering that she claims to have the ability to choose the winner. So looking at this from a path point of view, the two most unstable paths are seeking a collaboration, or have been collaborating, and Hunt and Preservation know how much of a mess this all could be, all while the Trailblaze tries to keep the peace. As always. Should we let Aha and Yaoshi cook? Probably not, but if Lan fires off a Lux Arrow or Klpoth Hammer strikes, I don't think anybody wins. So once again, it's up to us to mediate and walk the tightrope of peace. Careful not to trigger what could easily result in multiple Aeons striking the same place.
I'd say it's not too late to rename the planet Adlevin.
Not to mention the destruction looming in the back, most likely instigating this entire conflict. I wouldn't be surprised if Assad Pramod and Fantilia are behind Full Wish and her Abundance Elation cult. Side note, do you guys remember my Nanook theory where they are entropy and negentropy constantly fighting against each other, and Noose's instants are just wars that push Nanook further towards entropy because the universe needs to get destroyed if everyone's just constantly fighting and causing wars with each other? Well, I would argue that this is a major conflict, because if we fail to come together and start a war amongst ourselves, we are only proving Nanook right. The universe is tainted and deserves destruction. But if we do find a way to put our differences aside and weave together the paths in a way that everyone can coexist in peace, Nanook will be pushed towards negentropy, order, not destruction. An Aeon War isn't inevitable. It is the endless fight against entropy that we need to convince Nanook it is possible to endure. But that's just my theory. But speaking of Full Wish, I feel like she is the biggest threat to Evanescia's plan. Not because she could mind control cult her way into winning the Phantom Moon games, no. I think her brand of elation combined with abundance gives Evanescia's plan a bad name. Initially, people would be open to the idea of a collaboration because on paper it all makes sense and is good. But I feel that Full Wish is going to be an obstacle for our Pink Fox in a way she probably isn't aware of yet. Because in essence, Full Wish is trying to do the very same thing Evanescia is trying to do. A collaboration with the two paths, but in the worst way possible, which is only going to push the forces of the Preservation and the Hunt further towards the rejection of all things abundance. How Evanescia will cute her way out of this one, I couldn't tell ya. So the future is definitely uncertain, but at the very least, this is the plague mark of Plain Arcadia explained. If Evanescia is a plague mark, then she's a cute plague mark. And it is good to know that she means no harm by what she does. My only concern is that her naivete and innocence could get us all in trouble. Once again, the future is uncertain and everyone's fate has been placed in our hands. This could lead to an Aeon War or the Shanjo learning that the abundance can be cooperative. It is quite literally the highest of highs and the lowest of lows. We are at a crossroads here that may lead to an invigorated anti-destruction alliance with Hunt, Preservation, Abundance, Elation, and Trailblaze all in one faction, which would be devastating to Nanook. So I think we can guess why Assad Pramod is here and what his plan will be. Disrupt everything. What do you guys think? Be sure to let me know, and I'll see you all in the next video. Peace, y'all.